After the cowboy rescued her from the wolves, the Apache woman declared, "You're my man now." The cowboy had been riding since early morning. The sky was pale, and the cold air made his breath look like smoke. His horse moved slowly over rocky ground, and every step had to be careful. He was carrying supplies to a small trading post far away, and he wanted to reach it before night. The land around him was quiet, too quiet, with tall trees and thick brush that made it easy for danger to hide. He had traveled alone many times before, so he was used to silence. Still, something about this place made him feel uneasy. The wind moved through the trees with a low sound, almost like a warning. He pulled his coat tighter around his body and kept riding, telling himself not to let fear control him. As the sun began to lower, shadows grew longer. The cowboy thought about making camp, but he wanted to push a little farther. He believed the trading post was not too far now. His horse suddenly slowed and lifted its head, ears pointing forward. The animal felt something before the man did. Then the cowboy heard it. A sharp, frightened cry cut through the quiet forest. He stopped his horse at once. His heart began to beat faster. He listened carefully. The sound came again, weaker this time, mixed with low growls. The cowboy knew that sound. Wolves. Without thinking too long, he turned his horse toward the noise. He guided the animal through thick trees and over uneven ground. The growls became louder. His hand moved to his rifle, not because he wanted trouble, but because he knew he might need to protect someone. When he reached a small open area, he saw a terrible sight. A woman lay on the ground, her leg injured. Her clothes and the way she carried herself told him she was Apache. Around her, a small pack of wolves moved slowly, their eyes shining in the fading light. They were waiting, watching, ready to move closer. The woman tried to sit up, but she was too weak. Fear showed on her face, but there was also strength. She did not scream again. She knew screaming might make things worse. The cowboy did not think about his own safety. He pushed his horse forward and shouted as loud as he could. He waved his arms and fired a shot into the air. The loud sound echoed through the trees. The wolves jumped back, surprised. Some of them growled, but they did not move forward. The cowboy fired another shot, this time closer to the ground near them. He shouted again, making himself look bigger and louder. Slowly, the wolves backed away. They did not run far, but they moved enough to give him a chance. He kept watching them, his rifle ready, until they finally turned and disappeared into the forest. Only then did he breathe deeply. He climbed down from his horse and walked carefully toward the woman. He kept his movements slow, so he would not scare her. He knew that in times like this, fear could make people do things they did not mean to do. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said in a calm voice. "You're safe now." Her dark eyes were sharp even though her body was weak. She did not answer right away. She seemed to study his face, his clothes, and his hands. She wanted to know if he was truly a friend. Finally, she nodded once, very slowly. Her leg was bleeding, and it looked painful. The cowboy knelt beside her and took out a small cloth and water from his bag. He cleaned the wound as gently as he could. The woman bit her lip but did not cry out. Her strength impressed him. "You're brave," he said softly. She gave a small, tired smile. The cowboy helped her sit up. He could tell she had been walking alone for a long time. Her clothes were dusty and her face showed signs of hunger and tiredness. She must have been separated from her people. He built a small fire a short distance away, keeping an eye on the trees. The light and warmth made the place feel a little safer. He gave her some water and a small piece of food. She accepted it with quiet thanks. As she ate and drank, her strength slowly returned. She told him in simple words that she had been hunting and had lost her way. Her injury had slowed her down, and that was when the wolves found her. The cowboy listened carefully. He did not interrupt her. He could hear the fear in her voice, but also the pride. She did not want to be seen as weak. "You saved my life," she said after a moment. He shook his head. Anyone would have done the same. But she looked at him in a way that told him she did not agree. Ah! To her, what he had done was more than simple help. It was something deep and serious. Night came quickly in the mountains. The fire crackled, and the cold grew stronger. The cowboy decided they could not stay there long. Wolves often returned. He needed to get her to a safer place. He helped her onto his horse. He walked beside them, holding the reins, so the horse would move slowly and carefully. Every step was taken with care so her injured leg would not hurt more than it already did. As they moved through the forest, the woman stayed quiet, but her eyes stayed on him. She was thinking, remembering, and judging. In her culture, actions mattered more than words. A man who risked his life for another was not forgotten. The cowboy felt that something important had happened, even if he did not fully understand it yet. This was not just a simple rescue on a lonely trail. This was the beginning of a story that would change both of their lives. When they finally stopped to rest again, the woman spoke softly. "My people will honor what you did," she said. The cowboy nodded, not fully knowing what that meant. He only knew one thing for sure. That night, in the cold and quiet wilderness, he had followed his heart. And sometimes, one brave choice could open the door to a future no one could ever expect. If you're ready, I can now expand part 2 in the same style and length. The next morning, the cold air still filled the forest, but the sky was clear. Soft light came through the trees and touched the small camp where the cowboy and the Apache woman had rested. The fire had burned down to warm red coals. Birds began to sing, and for a short moment, everything felt peaceful. He checked the area to make sure no wild animals had come close during the night. Then he looked at the woman. She was awake too, sitting quietly and watching the trees. Her injured leg was still wrapped with the cloth he had tied around it. She tried to stand, but she moved slowly, careful not to put too much weight on it. "You should take it easy," the cowboy said. "We don't want to make it worse." She nodded. "I am stronger than I look," she replied. Her voice was calm but firm. "But I will be careful." The cowboy smiled a little. He could already see that she was not the kind of person who liked to depend on others. Still, for now, she had no choice. They were far from help, and the land was still dangerous. He made a small fire again and warmed some simple food. They ate in silence at first. The quiet was not uncomfortable. It felt more like a shared understanding. They were two strangers, but something had already connected them. After they ate, the cowboy checked her leg. The wound looked better than the night before, but it would take time to heal. He told her they needed to travel slowly and carefully. There was a small river not too far away, and beyond that, he believed there were safer paths. As they prepared to move, the woman finally spoke more about herself. She told him her name and the name of her people. She explained that she had gone out alone to hunt and gather supplies, but bad weather and her injury had caused her to lose her direction. By the time she realized she was lost, she was already deep in unfamiliar land. The cowboy listened closely. He respected her courage. Traveling alone in such wild places was not easy for anyone. "My name is not important," he said when she asked about him. What matters is getting you back to your people." She looked at him with a serious expression. "Names are always important," she said. "They tell who you are." He thought about that for a moment. Then he told her his name and where he came from. He explained that he worked as a cowboy and sometimes carried supplies for trading posts in small towns. His life was simple but often lonely. As they walked, he stayed close to her, ready to help if she slipped or became too tired. Sometimes he offered his arm to support her. At first she refused, wanting to show she could manage. But after a while, she accepted his help without argument. It was not weakness, it was trust. They crossed a narrow path near a small stream. The water was cold and clear. The cowboy helped her wash her hands and face. He also cleaned his own face, and for a moment they both laughed quietly at how tired and dusty they looked. That small laugh made the heavy situation feel lighter. As the day went on, they talked more. She told him about her people, their strong family bonds, and how they believed that every important action had meaning. Saving a life was not just a kind act. It was something that created a deep connection between two people. The cowboy listened, but he did not fully understand. In his world, helping someone was just the right thing to do. He never expected anything in return. Still, he could tell that to her what he did carried much more weight. "You did not have to help me," she said. "You could have ridden away." "I couldn't do that," he replied. "Not when someone needed help." She studied his face again, the same way she had the night before. "That tells me who you are," she said quietly. They stopped to rest under a large tree. The cowboy gave her more water and checked her leg again. It was slowly healing, but she was still in pain. He could see it in her eyes, even though she tried to hide it. He told her stories about his travels. He spoke about long trails, hard winters, and small towns where people helped each other survive. She listened with interest. In return, she shared stories of her tribe, of strong women and brave hunters, and of traditions that had been passed down for many years. As they shared these stories, something new began to grow between them. It was not just friendship. It was a quiet respect and understanding. They came from different worlds, but they both knew what it meant to face danger and keep moving forward. Later that afternoon, the cowboy noticed signs that worried him: broken branches, tracks in the dirt. He knew these were not from wolves this time. They looked like signs of other travelers, and not all travelers were friendly. He became more alert. He walked slightly ahead of her, watching the trees and listening for strange sounds. The woman noticed the change in him. "What is it?" she asked. "We may not be as alone as we think," he replied. She nodded, understanding at once. Life in the wild had taught her to read danger too. She tightened her grip on a small knife she carried, just in case. They moved more carefully after that. The forest felt different. The quiet was heavier. The cowboy kept his rifle close, but he hoped he would not need to use it. His main goal was still to get her safely home. As the sun began to go down again, they found a place to rest that was hidden from the main path. The cowboy made another small fire, keeping it low so it would not be seen from far away. That night, they sat close to the fire for warmth. The woman looked at the flames and then at him. "In my people's ways," she said softly, "when a person saves another from death, they are tied together by honor. It is not something we forget." The cowboy felt a strange feeling in his chest. He did not know exactly what that meant for him, but he could tell it was important to her. "I just wanted to help," he said honestly. "I know," she replied. "That is why it matters even more." They sat in silence after that. The fire popped quietly. The stars shone above them. In that quiet moment, both of them felt that this journey was changing them. What started as a rescue was becoming something deeper. They were no longer just a cowboy and a lost woman. They were two people walking the same path, learning to trust each other and slowly building a bond that neither of them had expected. And somewhere deep inside, both of them knew that when they reached her people, things would not be the same as before. The world they knew was already starting to shift. By the third day, the land began to change. The tall trees slowly became fewer, and open ground started to appear between them. The air felt different too, warmer and lighter. The Apache woman looked more hopeful as she studied the land around them. She recognized small signs that told her they were getting closer to where her people sometimes traveled. Her steps were still slow, but she was stronger now. The cowboy noticed that she did not need as much support as before. Still, he stayed close, ready to help. He had grown used to walking beside her. It felt natural, like this was how things were meant to be for now. As they moved forward, she began to point out landmarks, a strange-shaped rock, a group of trees growing in a circle, a dry stream bed that only filled with water after heavy rain. Each sign brought a small smile to her face. "My people pass near here," she said. "Not always, but sometimes we are close." The cowboy felt relieved. He had been worried about how long they would have to travel. The land was still dangerous, and he wanted her safe as soon as possible. That afternoon they saw thin smoke rising far in the distance. It was not thick, but it was steady. The woman stopped walking and stared at it. "That is from a camp," she said softly. "It could be my people." They both stood still for a moment. The cowboy felt a mix of feelings. He was glad they might soon reach her tribe, but he also felt unsure. He did not know how her people would react to him. He was an outsider. In some places, that could mean trouble.
"We should go carefully," he said. She nodded.
"Yes, they will watch before they speak."
They moved slowly toward the smoke, making sure they were not seen as a threat. The woman walked slightly ahead now, even with her injured leg. Her pride and courage gave her strength. As they got closer, the cowboy noticed shapes moving between the rocks and bushes. He knew they were being watched. Eyes followed them from hidden places. Apparent hood, he kept his hands relaxed and away from his rifle, showing he did not want trouble. Soon a few Apache men stepped out into the open. They held their weapons, but not in a way that meant they were ready to attack. Their faces were serious, their eyes sharp. The woman spoke to them in her own language. Her voice was strong, even though she was tired. She explained what had happened, how she had been lost, how she had been injured, and how the cowboy had saved her from the wolves and helped her travel safely. The men listened carefully. Their eyes moved from her to the cowboy and back again. One of them, who seemed older and wiser, stepped forward. He looked at the cowboy for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly.
"You are brave," the older man said in simple words. "You protected one of ours."
Women, children, and other men. They gathered quietly, watching with curiosity and caution. The woman was helped to sit on a blanket. Someone brought her water and food. The cowboy stepped back slightly, giving her space with her people. He felt like he was standing on the edge of a different world. The woman spoke with her people for a while. Her voice rose and fell as she told her full story. Sometimes she pointed toward the cowboy. Each time she did, people looked at him with new interest and respect. After some time, the elders of the group gathered together. They spoke quietly among themselves. The cowboy waited, not knowing what to expect. He kept telling himself that he had done the right thing. No matter what happened now, he would not regret helping her. Finally, the woman stood up with help. She walked toward the center of the small gathering. Even with her injury, she stood tall and proud. The people grew quiet. She spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "This man saved my life," she said. "He faced danger for me. He did not know me, but he still chose to help. In our ways, this is not a small thing." The people listened closely. The cowboy felt his face grow warm. He was not used to being the center of attention. She continued, "By our tradition, a life saved creates a bond of honor. The one who saves becomes responsible in a special way. It means protection, respect, and duty." Then she turned and looked directly at him. "You are my man now," she said firmly. The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was deep. The cowboy felt shocked. He did not fully understand what she meant. He knew she was not saying it in the way people in his world might. To her, it was about honor, duty, and a serious connection. The camp became very quiet. Everyone watched his reaction. He cleared his throat. "I didn't save you to claim anything," he said honestly. "I just wanted you to live." "I know. That is why the bond is true. It was not done for reward." One of the elders stepped forward again. "In our people's ways," he said, "this does not mean you are trapped. It means you are connected. You are under her protection, and she is under yours. You will be treated with respect here." The cowboy took a deep breath. He slowly began to understand. This was not a threat. It was an honor in their culture. "I will respect your ways," he said. "I never meant to cause trouble." "You caused no trouble? You showed courage." Some nodded. A few even smiled. The woman was helped back to her place to rest. But now, the way people looked at the cowboy had changed. He was no longer just a stranger. He was someone who had earned a place among them, even if only for a short time. That evening, the cowboy was given food and a place to sit near the fire. Children looked at him with curious eyes. Some of the men asked him simple questions about where he came from and what his life was like. He answered honestly, feeling more comfortable as time passed. The woman sat nearby, watching him. Their eyes met sometimes. There was a new understanding between them now. What began as a rescue had become something bigger than either of them had planned. As the fire burned low and the stars came out, the cowboy realized his life had taken a turn he never expected. He came to deliver supplies. He came to ride a lonely trail. But now he was tied by honor to a people and a woman whose world was very different from his own. He did not yet know what this would mean for his future, but he could feel that this moment, this declaration, had changed the path of his life. And, deep inside, he knew that part 4 would not be easy. Different worlds were now connected, and learning to live with that would bring new challenges, new tests, and new choices for both of them. Life in the camp moved at a steady and quiet rhythm. The cowboy stayed for several days as the Apache woman recovered. Her legs slowly grew stronger, and each day she was able to walk a little more on her own. The people of the camp watched him closely at first, but they were no longer cold toward him. They treated him with careful respect as someone who now had a special connection to one of their own. The cowboy did his best to fit in without getting in the way. He helped carry water, gathered firewood, and fixed small things around the camp when he could. He did not want to feel like a guest who only took and never gave. Hard work was something he understood, and through work he slowly earned more trust. Some of the men tested him in quiet ways. They asked him to join them in simple tasks, like checking traps or walking the edges of the camp to look for danger. These were not meant to threaten him. They wanted to see what kind of man he truly was. He stayed calm, did his part, and showed that he could be trusted. The woman watched all of this. She noticed how he treated others, how he spoke with respect, and how he never acted as if he was better than anyone else. This made her trust in him grow stronger. In her heart, she felt that the spirits had guided him to her for a reason. At the same time, the cowboy felt pulled in two directions. Part of him wanted to return to his old life. He had responsibilities, routes to ride, and people waiting for supplies. But another part of him felt drawn to this camp, to this woman, and to the quiet strength of her people. He felt something here that he did not often feel on the open trail: belonging. One evening, an elder sat beside him near the fire. The old man spoke slowly, choosing his words with care.
"You come from a different world," the elder said.
"Your ways and our ways are not the same. This can bring strength, but it can also bring trouble. I understand that. I don't want to cause problems." The elder looked at him closely. The woman's words created a bond of honor, but honor is not just words. It is how you act every day. "I will do my best," the cowboy replied. The elder gave a small nod. That is all any man can do.
As days passed, small challenges began to appear.
Some younger men in the camp did not fully trust him. They had grown up hearing stories of outsiders who brought trouble. Even though the cowboy had proven his courage, they still watched him with careful eyes. One day, while walking near the edge of the camp, the cowboy noticed signs of strangers, footprints that did not belong to anyone in the tribe. The tracks were fresh. He reported this to the leaders at once. The camp became more alert. Guards were placed in quiet spots. The woman saw the worry on his face. "You did right to tell them," she said. "This is part of your duty now." That word, duty, stayed in his mind. In his old life, duty meant finishing a job and moving on. Here, duty meant protecting people, even when it was not easy. That night, strange sounds were heard in the distance. Not wolves this time, human voices, far away. The camp stayed quiet and hidden. The cowboy felt tension in the air. He realized that being connected to this tribe also meant sharing in their dangers. The woman came to sit beside him near the fire. "Are you afraid?" she asked gently. He thought for a moment. "I'd be lying if I said no," he answered. "But I won't run from what's right. That is why you belong in this moment, even if your path is different from ours." The cowboy helped the men move the camp slightly to a safer location near rocks and trees that offered better cover. He followed their lead, learning their ways of staying hidden and protected. During this time, his bond with the woman grew deeper. They spent more time talking. She told him about her childhood, about learning the ways of her people, and about how she had always believed that life could change in one single moment. He shared his own past, too. He spoke of long rides, lost friends, and nights spent alone under the stars. He admitted that sometimes he wondered if his life would always be like that. She listened quietly. "Maybe your life was leading you here," she said. He did not answer right away. He was not sure if he believed in fate, but he could not deny that this meeting had changed him. One afternoon, her leg was strong enough for her to walk a long distance without help. She smiled proudly as she took steady steps on her own. "You don't need to watch over me every moment now," she teased gently. He smiled back. "I guess that's a good thing." But inside, he knew he would still watch over her, even if she did not need him to. Later, a small disagreement happened in the camp. One of the younger men spoke sharply to the cowboy, questioning why an outsider should have any say in their safety. The cowboy did not raise his voice.
He stayed calm. I don't want power, he said.
I just want everyone to be safe. The elder stepped in and reminded everyone of the honor bond. The tension slowly faded, but the cowboy understood something important. Trust takes time. Even brave actions do not erase fear right away. That night, as he sat alone for a moment, he looked up at the stars. He thought about the road behind him and the road ahead. He realized he was standing between two worlds. One was familiar and simple. The other was new, deep, and full of responsibility. The woman joined him quietly. "You are thinking of leaving," she said. "I am thinking of everything," he replied honestly. She nodded. "Whatever you choose, it will not erase what you did. The bond will always be part of our story." They were meant to remind him that some connections do not end just because people walk different paths. The cowboy felt a deep respect for her strength and wisdom. He did not yet know what his final choice would be, but he knew one thing. He was no longer the same man who rode into the forest days ago. He had been tested by danger, welcomed by strangers, and tied by honor in a way he had never known before. And he could feel that the final part of this journey would force him to make a choice that would shape the rest of his life. If you're ready, I can now expand part 5 in the same style and length to complete your full story. The morning sun rose softly over the camp, bringing a calm feeling after many days of tension and change. The air felt fresh, and for a short time everything seemed peaceful. The cowboy stood near his horse, brushing its coat and checking his supplies. His hands moved from habit, but his mind was far away. He knew this day would be different. The woman walked toward him on her own, her step steady now. Her leg was not fully healed, but she was strong enough to move without help. There was pride in the way she held herself. She had survived danger, pain, and fear, and now she stood tall again. "You look ready to ride," she said gently. He nodded. "I need to think about my road," he replied. "People are waiting for supplies. I can't forget my duties out there." She understood. There was no anger in her eyes, only honesty. "Your path is not the same as mine," she said. "But our paths crossed for a reason." They walked together to a quiet place, away from the others. The wind moved softly through the trees. Birds flew above them, free and strong. The cowboy took a deep breath. "When I rode into that forest, I was just doing my job. I never thought I'd become part of something like this. Sometimes life chooses for us before we understand why." He looked at her, truly seeing her strength, her courage, and her deep connection to her people. "You and your people showed me something," he said. "You showed me what real honor looks like, not just in words, but in how you live every day." She lowered her eyes for a moment, then looked back at him.
You showed me that kindness can come from anywhere.
Even from someone who is a stranger. They stood in silence for a few moments. It was not an empty silence. It was full of respect and understanding. The elders called a small gathering later that day. The cowboy was invited to stand before them. The woman stood nearby. The elder who had spoken to him before stepped forward. "You came to us by chance," the elder said, "but you stayed by choice. You showed courage, patience, and respect. These are things we do not forget." The cowboy bowed his head slightly. "I did only what felt right. That is the mark of a good man." The elder then spoke about the bond of honor again. He explained that even if the cowboy chose to leave, the bond would remain in spirit. It meant that the story of what happened would be told, and his name would be remembered with respect. The cowboy felt a strong emotion in his chest. He was not used to being remembered for something like this. His life on the trail was usually quiet and unseen. After the gathering, people came to shake his hand, offer him food, and wish him safe travels. Even the younger men who once doubted him now looked at him with new respect. The woman walked with him as he prepared his horse. She handed him a small handmade item, simple but meaningful. "This is for you," she said, "so you remember that you are always welcome among my people." He accepted it carefully. "I will carry it with me," he said, "wherever I go."
He hesitated for a moment. "If you ever need help."
"If our paths cross again, I will be there. I believe that." They looked at each other, knowing this goodbye was important. Not sad, but powerful. It was the kind of goodbye that changes both people. The cowboy mounted his horse. He looked back at the camp, at the people, and at the woman who had changed his life in ways he never expected. As he rode away, the trail felt different. The land was the same, but he was not. Days later, as he traveled toward the trading post, he thought often about what had happened. He thought about the wolves, the fire in the forest, the long walks, and the declaration that had shocked him. He realized that courage was not just about facing danger. It was also about accepting responsibility, even when it comes in a form you never planned for. When he reached the trading post, people noticed something different about him. He was quieter, more thoughtful. He worked hard, but his eyes sometimes looked toward the distant mountains. One night, sitting by a small fire alone, he took out the small handmade item she had given him. He held it in his hand and smiled softly. That wasn't just a rescue, he said to himself. That was a turning point. He understood now that some moments in life are bigger than jobs, bigger than money, and bigger than plans. Some moments shape who you become. Far away, in her camp, the Apache woman also thought about him. She told her people about the cowboy who rode into danger without knowing her name and who stayed when he did not have to. She spoke of him with pride and respect. In her heart, she knew that even if she never saw him again, their story would live on. It would be told as a story of courage, honor, and unexpected connection. Seasons passed. The cowboy continued his work, but he was no longer just a man riding from place to place. He was a man who carried a story, a bond, and a deeper understanding of what it meant to stand for something greater than himself. He helped others more often. He stopped when people needed help. He listened more. He judged less. The experience had changed how he saw the world. Sometimes at night, he would look at the stars and think of the camp, the fire, and the woman who stood strong even when hurt and alone. Maybe one day he would think, our paths will cross again. That one brave choice in the forest did not just save a life, it gave his own life a new meaning. And so, the story did not end with a goodbye. It continued in every good choice he made after that. It continued in the way he treated others. It continued in the quiet strength he carried with him on every road. Because sometimes the greatest journeys are not just across land. They are the journeys that change the heart.